Welcome back to Mythic Codex Legends Unveiled, the place where mythology, folklore, and legends come alive. I'm your host, Eliza, and tonight we'll uncover the stories that have captivated humanity for thousands of years. Turn the page, our journey begins now. There are legends about creatures that hunt people. There are legends about creatures that live in the darkness. And then there are legends about creatures that make people so greedy that they willingly walk into that darkness. Tonight, we're going to South Africa, deep into the Richterveld, a dry and rugged landscape of mountains, rivers, caves, and ancient stones. There is a legend about something enormous hiding beneath the earth. Something that doesn't want to be found. Something that may have been guarding treasure long before humans ever started searching for it. Its name is the Grootslang, but tonight there's another name for it. The serpent beneath the diamonds. And believe me, there is a reason. The word Grootslang comes from Afrikaans and Dutch, essentially means great snake or big snake. And that name alone tells us something. This wasn't originally just a monster story about some strange animal. It was a story about something impossibly large, a serpent that belongs somewhere humans were never supposed to go. And according to the legend, its home was a cave sometimes called the Wanderhole or the Bottomless Pit. A place said to descend deep into the earth. A place surrounded by stories of diamonds. And somewhere inside that darkness, the Grootslang waits. One of the most famous versions of the Grootslang legend says that, in the beginning, supernatural beings created a creature with the strength of an elephant and the cunning of a serpent. But they had made a terrible mistake. The creature was too powerful, too intelligent, too dangerous. So it was divided into two separate creatures, the elephant and the serpent. But one Grootslang survived, and according to the legend, that survivor remained somewhere in the darkness. This story is one of the reasons modern descriptions often portray the Grootslang as an elephant-serpent hybrid. But here's where things get interesting. The old reports don't always describe it that way. Some accounts describe the Grootslang simply as an enormous serpent. And that makes the legend even more fascinating to me, because somewhere along the way, the monster changed. The story grew. The creature became larger, stranger, more terrifying, and eventually the Grootslang became something far more than a giant snake. It became a symbol of what happens when humans go looking for something they were never meant to possess. Image standing in Richtersveld. The landscape is dry. The mountains rise around you. The ground beneath your feet is ancient, and somewhere among the landscape is a cave connected to the legend. The entrance isn't inviting. It's dark, cold, and according to the stories, it leads down into a place where diamonds can supposedly be found. Now, image being told that those diamonds belong to something that has been living down there for generations, something capable of swallowing an elephant, something large enough that its movement can leave an enormous trail through the earth. Would you go inside? Because people have. And this is where the legend stops being just a monster story. It becomes a story about greed. The Grootslang is often said to guard treasure hidden within the cave. Diamonds, precious stones, wealth beyond imagination. And that creates a very particular kind of horror. The Grootslang doesn't have to chase everyone. It doesn't have to hunt every person who comes near its cave. It can simply wait, because sooner or later, someone will come looking for the diamonds. And that's the terrifying part. The monster doesn't necessarily need to lure you inside. Your own greed can do it for him. What would you do? So let me ask you something. If you knew there was a cave filled with diamonds, but you were told a creature lives inside that cave and protected them, would you still go inside? Would you risk your life for something you could never take back out? Or would you leave the diamonds exactly where they were? Think about that one. Because the people who entered those stories didn't always make it back out. See, if I knew that there was a creature in that cave bigger than anything you could ever imagine, and let alone it's a snake, I'm not going in there. There's no way I'm going in there. I don't care if there's diamonds at the bottom of that cave. No way. I'm not going in there. I'm good. The Grootslang isn't frightening because it's simply big. It's frightening because of what the stories say it can do. A creature that enormous wouldn't need claws. It wouldn't need weapons. A serpent's body alone would be enough. Image being caught inside a cave. You hear something moving, not footsteps, not breathing, just the scraping of something enormous against stone. Then silence. You turn around, nothing. You look deeper into the cave, still nothing. Then you notice something on the ground. A trail, a massive trail disappearing into the darkness. And suddenly you realize, whatever made it is still inside. Some versions of the legend describe the Grootslang as devouring animals, including elephants. And if a creature could swallow something as enormous as an elephant, image what would happen to a human being. There wouldn't necessarily be a struggle. There might not even be time to scream. One moment you're standing there, the next you're gone. One of the darkest stories associated with the Grootslang involves an English businessman named Peter Grayson, who disappeared in the Richtersveld in 1917. Accounts say Grayson was searching for treasure when members of his party encountered dangerous animals and were attacked. Grayson disappeared, and eventually the story became connected with the Grootslang. Now here's something important. We have to separate historical events from the legend. A disappearance is not proof that a supernatural creature was responsible. There are very real dangers in the wilderness: predators, heat, isolation, and simply getting lost. But that's exactly how legends grow. Something happens. People don't know exactly what happened. And then the landscape gives the mystery a face. In this case, the face of the Grootslang. Here's what I find most fascinating about the Grootslang. It's not simply a creature that says, "Come closer so I can eat you." The legend carries something deeper. It says some things are dangerous because we want them to. The diamonds aren't just treasure, they're temptation. The cave isn't simply a home, it's a warning. And the Grootslang isn't merely a monster. It's the thing standing between human greed and something we were never meant to possess. So here's my second question for you. Do you think the Grootslang represents an actual creature in the stories? Or do you think it represents something else? Fear, greed, the danger of disturbing places that should be left alone. Or maybe all three. I really like to know what you think. Because I think the Grootslang represents greed. I don't think it's a fact that there's actually a monster in that cave. I think it's the fact that somebody wants there to be a monster in there, so that whatever's down there can remain untouched. Now let's talk about the image most people recognize today. The enormous body of a snake. The head has features of an elephant, massive tusks, and monstrous size, and sometimes even diamonds associated with his eyes. It's an incredible image. But the history behind that image isn't as simple as people sometimes make it sound. Some older accounts describe the Grootslang as a gigantic snake rather than the full elephant snake monster that became popular in modern culture. So when you picture the Grootslang, picture more than one version. Picture the ancient darkness beneath the mountains. Picture a serpent so large that ordinary measurements seem meaningless. And then picture the later monster, part elephant, part serpent, and completely terrifying. The cave itself may be the most terrifying part of the entire story, because caves already frighten us for a reason. You can't see what's inside. You don't know how deep they go. You don't know what's waiting around the next corner. And sounds behave differently. A small noise can become enormous. A distant movement can sound like it's right beside you. Now image entering a cave while believing a giant serpent lives somewhere beneath you. Every sound becomes a warning. Every shadow becomes a movement. Every scrape against the stone becomes the question. Is that the Grootslang? So here's my third question. If you were trapped inside the Grootslang's cave and suddenly heard something enormous moving toward you from the darkness, would you run deeper into the cave, looking for another exit? Or would you turn around and try to get back out? Because personally, I don't think I'd wait around to find out what was making that noise. I'm leaving. I'm not staying in there. Maybe that's why the Grootslang has survived as a legend, because deep down we understand the fear behind it. The fear of the unknown, the fear of being somewhere we shouldn't be, the fear of wanting something badly enough to ignore every warning, and the fear that there are places in this world that still hold secrets. The Richtersfeld is real. The caves are real. The landscape is real. Diamonds are real. Giant snakes are real. But the Grootslang? That's where the line between reality and legend disappears. And maybe that's exactly where the Grootslang wants us. Standing at the edge of the darkness, wondering. But before I leave you tonight, I have one more question. Not for the legend, for you. If you discovered the entrance to the Grootslang's cave and knew there were diamonds inside, but you also knew there was a chance the creature was real, would you enter? Would the possibility of unimaginable wealth be enough to make you walk into the darkness? Or would you listen to the warning and walk away? Because sometimes the smartest thing you can do with something is calling you from the darkness, is not answer. The Grootslang may be a monster. It may be a legend born from giant snakes, dangerous wild wilderness, disappearances, and generations of storytelling. Or maybe somewhere beneath the mountains of South Africa, there really is something that doesn't want to be found. Something old, something patient, something guarding what lies beneath the earth. And if the legend is right, the diamonds are still there, waiting. But so is the Grootslang. This has been Mythic Codex Legends Unveiled. I'm your host Eliza, and tonight we didn't just uncover a monster. We uncovered a warning. Be careful what you go searching for, because sometimes the treasure is not the thing waiting for you at the end of the journey. Sometimes the monster is.